Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Before we start with the consent agenda, there is one item I'd like to have pulled off there for
Okay.
further discussion. That is number 4, Airport Road Water Main Extension.
Okay. Item 4.
Item 4, yes, that's correct.
Okay. We'll do that first, right, this consent agenda.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Hines.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On your consent agenda, you start out with 3 sets of minutes for your consideration and approval. Finance Committee report for June of 2014, disbursement of fiscal year 2014-15 discretionary funds, and a summary of contracts awarded, change orders approved, and city manager's settlement of claims. And your other items of the consent agenda, you have an amendment to Title VII, the Traffic Code, Chapter 76, involving the addition of 3 parallel parking spaces on Haynes Street between Correll and Talleyrand. We are extending our streetscape to that city block, and as we restriped it after we did the improvements, we found that we could add 3 additional spaces. That's what that item involves. Number 3 is to report, confirm, and enter into the minutes the settlement of the City of Monroe versus Construction Financial Services. This involves the settlement of a claim of $16,622 for the condemnation of a sewer easement several years ago. Number 5 is the award contract for rubber tire trencher for the natural gas division. $96,900. Your budget of $100,000 easily covers that. And number 6 is the ratification of annual service contracts. And let me just go through them for the sake of the audience. Data Pro's bid of $106,000 is for printing our utility bills and postage service for the next year. $280,000 to Carolina Tree Care for tree trimming. $250,000 for Dawn Development for installing gas lines for expansion projects. $100,000 to Morris Trucking for sludge hauling from our sewer plants to fields that are certified for handling that sludge. And $363,053 to Green's Commercial Cleaning for cleaning all of the city buildings. Mr. Mayor, that concludes your consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that's approved. Item 4 on the agenda is Airport Road Water Main Extension to be pulled, and Mr. Belly, recognize you this time.
This is an item, Mr. Mayor, that came before us at our Finance Committee meeting, and it was an item I was not aware of, and I was not in support of it. And basically, I know that's something that we have to do, but I was not in support of it because it was $142,000 and some odd dollars that's coming out of our general fund, to complete services to a building that we just transferred title to. And I understand that there was $120,000 that was paid to a realtor for realtor's fees. And I'm not sure who signed any type of a listing contract. I'm not sure who signed off on the fact that we would pay a listing fee or a realtor's fee for the sale of that building. But that's $242,000 or $262,000 that just vanishes somewhere. And I've been hearing that we need to be very careful about the money we spend. So I just want some explanation from somebody about why that was not disclosed to City Council and why it was presented to us at the last minute.
Billy, this morning at Mayor's briefing, I asked some of the same questions, and I think Greg was going to get us a breakdown of what happened with the money and what we actually made or didn't make on the spec building.
Oh, well, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But
I don't
again,
know if Greg had time to do that. Okay.
Well, apparently Russ is here. He knows something about it, so why don't we hear from Russ?
Speak to the water line and that contract. He was not involved in hiring the designer or in the phasing of bringing in the water line after the building's sold. He simply provided the service of bidding out the water line once it was designed and also providing the engineer with the size.
Question for clarity so that I make sure I understand it. You saying the water line was installed after the building was sold?
I found out after the, as we started cleaning up, the building didn't have a certificate of occupancy when it was contracted to the company that bought it. And as Brian Bourne and I began to work through to get the building complete, we found out that there was no water to the building. It was almost a half a mile away. First, I knew that there was no water to the building, so we began to work very quickly to have the project designed and to have it brought to a bid so that we could close the building. When I say close it, sell it to somebody else. And so what we did was we worked with the engineer that had been engaged by the economic development director, and Russ gave him the sizes that he needed because he's in charge of the water system, and undertook to work with that engineer to get it bid out as an informal bid. Again, what happened was in the city hall, the building was put under contract on what we were told to be a quick close, but the building didn't have a certificate of occupancy. In fact, it really still doesn't because we haven't closed the building out with a contractor. We weren't told, and I think Joe McCollum was told that there was the item of a real estate commission involved. I was not told as city manager. I did not sign any listing agreement. I was unaware of it. City attorney told me. So that's all I can tell you. That's all I know.
Who did sign it?
I can't tell you. I don't know.
Would Craig read him?
Let me say that the real estate broker brought the deal to the city, and he was entitled to a commission. However, I'm unaware. I mean, a contracting person for the city did not agree to pay him that commission. That being either the mayor or me.
I asked the same question at closing, precisely almost the same words. And that's the answer I was told, that it was a broker who brought the deal to the city. And that's all I know too. That's the answer I got.
Who was the deal bought to though? I mean,
It was brought to the economic development director. Yes. But I think Joe McCollum was the first person to tell me that there was a broker involved.
Okay, Russ.
Russ, now the water lines.
Okay. Yeah, I would have to defer the funding questions to either Greg or Chris. As soon as, I think what happened was the closing accelerated. It was a quick close, which is great in terms of getting a business into Monroe. As soon as we became aware of that schedule, we laid out a fast-track schedule to get this thing bid, get the design finished, and get it to the site that was acceptable to the buyer. And that's when we got fully involved, and I kind of took over the project from there. So that's kind of what I can answer for. So we do have, for your consideration this evening, the award of a contract to extend this water main to serve the spec building. And we did do informal bids on August 28th, and the project consists of almost 1,200 feet of 12-inch and 8-inch water main. It'll serve all the needs of that area, and we've master planned for future buildings that's sized appropriately. We did receive the bids that are in your packet, with state utility contractors being the low bidder for the amount shown. So we are recommending both the approval of the contract and authorizing the city manager to execute. And
Give that amount. Please give that amount again, Russ.
Yes, sir. It's $147,000.
147.
473.13 cents.
And would that come out of, since that's part of the trunk line, would that come out of the water and sewer fund?
Well, in the staff report, we covered in all the previous economic development projects in that area, which included Arrow Point and Turbo Mecca, it was the same model where the economic development staff took the lead on getting the engineer and also getting the funding. So when I consulted with Greg about the funding of this, he provided this budget ordinance directed to the general fund, but we'll do anything the council wants us to do.
Well, this amount of money was got to be spent up front or later on, is that correct, to do the water line?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So this is not something that just jumped up out of the bushes.
It did jump.
Well, we waited.
Do what?
It did jump about.
No, you have to do a water line to the building.
No, I understand it's got to be done, but I'm saying that it did jump up out of the bushes because none of us are aware of it.
I think Chris waited until he had a prospect to spend the money, and that was it in a nutshell.
You just mentioned something that we were not told in the finance committee meeting, and that was basically, since this is a trunk line and other businesses are going to be served off there, that it could come out of the water.
The manager said that. I didn't say that.
Okay, all right. Well, would you expound on that?
Well, generally with utility lines, if you're going to oversize the line for a number of businesses, and the building that you're specifically building only needs a 6-inch line for fire purposes or whatever, you would charge the water and the sewer fund for the oversizing, and then only charge the building for that size of the line it needs for its particular purpose, if in fact it's going to be used on down the line. And we could look into that, Mr. Jordan, and make a simple budget amendment at a later meeting, but by splitting up the service, what we call the oversizing of the line, and put it in the water and sewer fund, and just charge the spec building number 3 for the service it's going to use exclusively.
Okay. Do you have any idea what that would be, Russ? If we would just, what size line does that spec building need?
We'd have to go back and calculate their fire flows and all. We do more master planning of the area. It's all 12-inch in the corporate center. I mean, whether we've extended to one building or not. And again, the previous examples with Turbo Mecca was 12-inch and the general fund paid. So we stuck with that model, but we'd be glad to look at, council can direct us to do anything, use all water sewer funds.
Either fund can use it, but it would be a candidate for water and sewer fund expenditure.
And one thing I haven't had a chance to review with the city manager, we have an extension policy, which of course the council has approved, and it dictates some of those things, but not specifically like that when you're talking economic development, a 6-inch versus a 12. We can certainly calculate the cost difference between those and look at what maybe the minimum sizing might be, but I have a feeling it'll be less, or it'll be greater than a 6 to serve the needs of that building, because fire flow.
And what size did you say you're planning on putting out there?
12-inch.
12 inches, but that's going to allow other businesses to be served from that as well.
It's master plan to make a loop back to Corporate Center Drive, so in combination with a loop, it'll serve that whole area. I don't know
But all
about
of it's 12.
standalone, I don't know if that's a correct statement, but we sized it to loop those, the water feed to that area. So we can go back and relook at all that.
Okay, Mayor, I've expressed my concern, and that is somehow we've sold a building that did not have a CO. And now the general fund is being asked to pay $147,000 and some odd dollars to correct a mistake that happened somewhere. And in addition to that, somebody contracted with a realtor to pay a realtor fee. And I don't know if the commercial realtors in Union County were made aware that we had a building out there for sale, and if it was sold, that we would be willing to pay this type of a realtor fee or not. But anytime that we're willing to pay a realtor fee, I think that the folks inside Union County have a right to know that, and so that they can look at prospects as well. And that's all
Okay.
that's all I have to say about it. So,
Any other comments, questions?
I
Yeah.
move we approve the request for water main extension for Monroe Spec Building number 3.
Okay, have a motion to approve, Do I have a second?
Mr. Mayor, maybe before we go forward with that, I think we have an issue here about that funding. Is that not correct? I mean, there is the 147, but the way Russ is explaining it, going into an area, tying into a loop that possibly would serve other buildings, and whether this could be money taken out of water resources rather than the general fund, to me seems rather important, especially since, do we really want to move on this? I know this is a quick sale. This is all sort of piling up here, if you will. It's like putting a block up on something that's moving forward, as in a fast-moving train. To me, if we do have concern, and I suspect that Councilman Jordan's concern is logical, that water resources is going to receive the revenue off of this building and the water as well, and rather than having to use general fund money, why would we not want to switch this to the water resource?
Hey Russ, is that the way you've done in the past, is use the water resource funds, or how have you done it on the other spec buildings?
I can't think of one example in my 15-year career where we did, but it's certainly allowed, and if you guys want to direct that, is great. I mean, if that, my bigger concern is we've made a schedule commitment now to.
Yeah, I get that.
Do you want to comment on that?
I get that.
Mayor and Council, and as Russ had mentioned, schedule commitment's the key item right now to award the contract. Should Russ's information find that the water fund may be able to get benefit out of this, we could certainly bring back an item to council about another budget amendment for this item. But in order to approve the item, we do have to have a funding source according to state law. So that's why we chose the general fund at this moment.
Okay, so
If I could recommend that you go ahead and approve it so we can get the project going, Greg could bring back a budget amendment transferring the applicable monies from the water and sewer fund to the general fund, and we could keep going with the project. You have to, as I understand, spec building number 3 was a loan from the electric fund.
yes, it was.
So it wasn't a general fund project in the beginning.
Right.
But the seller was supposed to pay back the electric fund.
That's correct.
We were supposed to make a little bit of profit, but I don't think we did by the time they paid the broker, and then that's what I have asked Greg for, so I'd like for us all to get that information.
But we can make a budget amendment and in the next meeting or in a couple meetings and do exactly what y'all want to do.
Move it
But
around.
keep the project going. We need to get the water line in so the new owner of the building will have access to it.
All right. Thank you, Russ. I have a motion, do I have a second?
That's your motion, Lynn, and you accept that we can get other funding for it. Yeah, okay. Well, I'll second that.
I have a motion, a second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that. This is regular agenda. Item 7, award downtown incentive grant. Mr. Bourne?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Tonight, for your consideration, we have downtown incentive grant for urban investments of Monroe. It's the residential incentive grant for upper floor residential units. Urban Investments is proposing to construct 5 second-floor apartments at 201, 211 North Main Street. The units will total about 7,295 square feet. The improvements proposed do comply with the Central Business District and the Downtown Master Plan. The economic benefits in the form of employment, increased tax-based property value, downtown revitalization, and utilities could be realized. The Downtown Advisory Board and staff recommend the grant application be approved, subject to compliance with the program and subject to a general fund appropriation. City Council is asked to consider funding approval not to exceed $105,219,000. That is the 20% up to that amount for a downtown incentive grant to award the incentive with payment upon completion to Urban Investments. And John Wiggins is here to answer any questions if you have any.
Council, have questions?
Now, questions of you, Brian.
Okay?
If this were a pass-through, let's say that he was applying for money from the state, and it was federal dollars, and this was pass-through monies that he was going to be getting, what are some of the questions that, or some of the requirements that he might have to go through in order to get pass-through monies from a state or a federal source?
From the state?
Or a federal source, you know.
Well, that would be the type of project like this, that would be your federal and state historic tax credits that you would comply with. So that would go through the State Historic Preservation Office and the National Park Service. They have specific requirements as to what can and cannot be done to maintain the historic integrity of the building. And that's not only the outside, but also the inside. And our grants ask that that be done to some extent, but it's not to the stringent requirements of those two entities, but they're kind of parallel.
What about income being paid to the people who are working on the site? I know that a lot of times the state or federal government have a requirement that if a contractor is going to get monies, especially with residential purpose in mind, that they have to pay an average of salaries that's paid in the prevailing marketplace.
I don't know if that's in effect on the historic tax credit.
But this is not a historic tax credit.
Yeah.
This is basically.
This is just our local.
This is just a standard residential property.
Right.
And again, if it was the monies we were getting from the state, they would probably be interested in that. What about monies that the state would provide on a project that might have some kind of provision of minority participation with the project of size? Typically, they would. What about some type of provision from the state that once the deal was closed and the state's money was in it, that there would be some type of a deed of trust, on behalf of the state, so that if the project, went belly up in a short period of time, that the state would have protection and be able to get its money back?
I don't think that. They sometimes require an easement on the front of the property, but as far as some sort of deed of trust, I'm not aware of any.
I know that. I know that with the Monroe Union County CDC, anytime that it gets money from the state or that have federal or state guidelines, that usually there's a requirement that the state's money be protected. Mm-hmm. If it's going to be a grant, that it be protected for a period of time to make sure that the property continues to be used for the purpose that the money was put there.
With the way our grant is structured, it's upon completion and after it's been inspected and meets all of the code requirements, we review receipts and all that kind of stuff. So we do have some protection in there, not to the extent you're talking about with the deed of trust.
Okay, and just finally, the money that we're going to contribute is not going to be put in until after the project is totally completed?
After completion, yes.
And we will do the periodic inspections. Our inspectors will do periodic inspections.
Our inspections will do all the required inspections required by state statute, and make sure all state building codes and all of that are met.
Okay, and just finally, again, if this were monies that was being passed through from the state or federal government, they would probably want some type of confirmation that all of the people working on the project are legal residents of the state of North Carolina or at least of the United States.
According to their E-Verify policy, which yes, I would think they
But again, we're not doing this by state or federal guidelines, so that is not a requirement that will be on this project.
Right.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any questions from the team? This is a public hearing. At this time, anyone here who would like to speak in favor? Anyone here who would like to speak in opposition? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and take action. Any other questions or comments? Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
A motion, a second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that'll pass. All right. I have for people to sign up and speak, and at this time, we will do that. I have for Mr. James Pulley. If you would, give us your name and address for our record, please.
Yes, my name is James Pulley. I live at 727 Sinclair Drive in the South Winds community. I'm a member of the local homeowners association board, and I'm actually here to ask the assistance of the city council this evening. So this past week, a member of our community knocked on my door. She's in the process of essentially abandoning her residence. Why? Because of crime. Her house has been broken into 3 times over the last 6 years. There are some community residents who are, how should we say, problem children who are continually acting up and in fact accosting this young woman for drugs and other items. And her relative, who happens to be in law enforcement, simply advised her, leave. It's not worth staying in the community when you're at risk like this. And I can't blame her. This is actually part of a pattern of continuous ongoing issues in our neighborhood. Lax law enforcement and code enforcement has led to rampant problems with grass, people parking in yards, speeding down the streets, parking in no parking zones. Code enforcement, law enforcement has been very generous. They've asked people to move their cars rather than ticket. And as a result, there have been very few consequences to this bad behavior, and it has continued, and it's continued to get worse over the years. The resident in this case who came to my home, she was righteously furious, as she should be. And she wanted to attack me as a member of the board, say, hey, you're not doing enough. The problem that we have as a board is we have very, very limited and specific enumerated responsibilities and powers. And when we do engage in actions, it takes oftentimes 45 to 60 days before we can get anything to occur if the resident wishes to comply. So I'm here once again to ask, please, let's partner together to make enforcement a little bit more expedited in this case, particularly for the bad individuals in our neighborhood. In specific, we're looking to increase citations on grass, building maintenance, parked cars, whether people are parking on the grass, 2 wheels or 4, in front of their house or behind their house. Let's get that taken care of. We would like the police to be as omnipresent for our problem children as these problem children are for the rest of the residents of our neighborhood. In fact, we had an incident a couple of weeks ago where one of these problem children's houses, their dogs got out at the time of buses, and their dogs were menacing children at the bus stop. We had a number of individuals who called the police. They didn't want to give their names. They didn't want to give their addresses, and they didn't want to give the address of the problem house because they had a fear of retribution. There was one person who did decide to do that, and there's a hearing coming up on that. I believe it's on October the 16th. We definitely need traffic enforcement to ticket cars and tow cars. We have continuous problem in yellow marked zones for no parking. People park there all the time, overnight. I live on a 1-lane street. Half the time there's a car parked right behind my driveway. I have actually stopped calling the police because all they do is come out and ask the person to move. They will not tow or cite, so the problem continues. So that's where we're at. We need your help. We don't want to be a failed community. We have a couple of homes in the neighborhoods that are acting as cancers to our neighborhood. It's pulling down value. Where our neighborhood is situated right next to an elementary school, Walter Bickett, with another community right across the street. We can't afford to have that as a failed community and have that as a cancer to the rest of the community. Just yesterday, I received my property tax notice, and I noticed at revaluation, my property value is going to go down at least 30%. And we're not going to be able to get that back up if we can't make our community attractive to have people move in. And at this point, it's not attractive. So I appreciate your time this evening. At the conclusion of tonight's activities, I'll be emailing all of you a copy of my statement, so you'll have a copy for your records, as well as my contact information and the other board members for the South Winds community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bullock. Diane Medley. Okay, how about, I've got two different sheets and some of them signed on both. Is the reason one sheet is to speak and one is not, so I got some names, different names. Okay, how about, I got names both up to both directions here. How about Leslie Boyd? Ms. Boyd, if you will give your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Leslie Boyd, 10011 Chimney Drive, Waxhaw, NC 28173. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow councilmen. Thank you so much. Council women, council members. I'm running for a seat on the Union County Board of Education at-large position, which means anyone in Union County can vote for me. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about myself. I'm from a small town, King George, Virginia. My husband and I have been in Union County for the past 10 years. We have a son, Isaiah III, studying at Clemson, and we have two daughters in the 3rd and 5th grade. I graduated from Radford University with a degree in business management. I currently work for the Department of Homeland Security, Customs and Border Protection as a facilities program manager and contracting officer. I have a passion for volunteering in the community. I am a member of the board of directors for the only domestic violence shelter in Union County, Turning Point, and I've been blessed to serve as the president for the past 2 years. It's very rewarding and humbling to be part of such a wonderful organization that teaches women and children that love doesn't have to hurt. I enjoy volunteering in the classroom as well as co-leading my daughter's Girl Scout troop. And the reason I want to run for Board of Education is that I want to represent all the children in Union County. I am in District 6. I live in Waxhaw. That seat is up, but I'm interested in all the children. I'm not worried about my children per se. I'm worried about the children that don't have a voice. We owe it to this county. Union County is a great place. You've got people that have lived here their entire life and love it, or you have people like me that have come in the last 10 years. We need to get back to the basics, focus on what makes Union County such a great place. There's been a lot of strife and this and that going on, and while you have that, Common Core is moving, Read to Achieve is moving, the train is still going, so we need to get on board and move forward. I'll bring you an independent new voice. I'm not attached to this group or that group. The only group I represent are the children of Union County Public Schools. I will work to establish positive relationships with the current BOE members, town council members. I will work to support and encourage and retain our teachers. We're losing our teachers at a vast rate. We need to work with our local budget, work with the things we can to say, hold on, we know, while we fight the fight in Raleigh. I plan to encourage policies that constantly evaluate our current and future needs. We need to, with the federal government, I work 5 years out. That's the only way we get our funding. We need to have some long-range planning. Finally, I want to ensure that all schools get what they need to be successful. And it's not a cookie-cutter operation. Every school has their strengths and their areas of improvement. I want to ensure that all the children in Union County have the same opportunity to succeed. There's no reason. There is not a school that I would not send my children to in Union County. So what we have here, we've got to have here, we've got to have here. We don't need people going, I don't want to go to that school. You should just say, I want to go to any school. And I just want to let you know that I'm here for you and for your children and for your taxpayer, even if you don't have children. This is not just a child only. This is an everyone. This is our community. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd.
Thank you.
Is anyone else here who would like to address the council? Public comment period.
Before we adjourn, I'd like to, is Assistant Chief Phil Presley still here? Phil? Okay. Before we leave, would you get with this gentleman right here? The answer, sir, is to not call the police, so we'll work with you.
Okay. Anything else, the council have anything else? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We adjourn. Thank you very much.